Welcome to Lawyers Coach. My name is Claire Rayson, and each episode will feature myself or Oliver Hansard, both of us coaches and former lawyers, trying to find out what makes lawyers tick. We'll be hearing from various guests and experts, and then at the end of each episode, we will both be reflecting on what they said. In this episode, Oliver Hansard talks to Amy Gibson, Legal Counsel for EMEA and Asia at Genus Plc. Oliver asks Amy what's going to be taken forward from last year, and there's a real sense of optimism about the future and about the law being more human and more about the people. Oliver starts by asking Amy what it is that made her become a lawyer.
I think it was probably watching too many episodes of Ally McBeal.
You won't be the first one who said that on the show, that's for sure.
And also, I was looking for a degree that would take me into a profession. And I think it's so difficult when you're choosing university courses to decide what the right thing is to do. And law, to me, a legal qualification, seemed to be quite a general approach to the future and not knowing what that might be. So that's how I ended up being a lawyer.
And did you know what you were getting into? Was it what you thought it would be?
I didn't think that I'd end up in such a mixture of different companies. I've been in data, music, now I'm in, animal genetics. So probably not at the time, no.
So you trained at Lovells and then went on to Bates and Wells. Did you enjoy the working in a law firm kind of environment and culture?
I think I appreciate it more now looking back. I think the training was really stellar and did set me up for success later on in my career. I think it was hard work, but it was good fun being with sort of a cohort of people training at the same time. But I didn't think that long term I'd want to be in a law firm. I thought as soon as I had the opportunity to move in-house, that would be more exciting and more fulfilling.
And then you went to EMI, and was EMI more exciting and more fulfilling?
Definitely. I mean, the job came up at EMI, and outside of work, I absolutely love music, all different types of music. And I just thought, this is amazing. If I can, combine work and music, that would be great fun. And I got to meet lots of really interesting people, do some interesting work, and just understand what being an in-house lawyer was all about.
And what was the most exciting thing you would have done then at EMI?
Any of my trips to Abbey Road. So for a period of time, I was sort of the Abbey Road lawyer.
Oh, wow.
And, you just get a kick out of going to a recording studio and just sort of, helping to do what you can on the contract side and just getting a sort of flavor of that world. That was always very exciting.
But then you left and you went into the even more exciting world of data. How did you find that? How did you find the data industry?
I thought it was fascinating. So the reason why I went into data was towards the end of the time that I spent at EMI, they started to talk about segmentation of customers. And it's quite a new concept for the music industry to look at that point in time. And then when the opportunity came out to work at dunnhumby and understand, the power of using data to make decisions, I thought that would be a very interesting kind of segue, and also interesting to see what kind of legal work would come with that. And it was a great place to meet some really bright individuals, driven individuals, and also to learn about a different industry, learn something about the retail industry as well, and the international aspects of that.
And so have you taken that data experience on with you into Genus, would you say?
I think so, and increasingly kind of calling on that sort of what I know about how powerful data can be, data analytics. I mean, obviously we're Genus being an animal genetics company, we've got a huge number of scientists and geneticists within our R&D and technical functions, and data is absolutely central to what they do and what they look at. But the ability to use data and kind of customer data and improve kind of customer experiences, that's something, and also as the company moves more towards kind of digitization, that's where I'm seeing that actually being able to refer back to what I understand about how data can be used in that decision-making process, that's been very helpful to have that reference point.
Okay, so you've actually used that background in the conversations that you have with clients at Genus.
Internal clients, yes, absolutely. And understanding what's possible from a technology point of view, what's out there, what's been tried before, maybe what other industries we can look to in order to see what's been done well.
And is that something that Genus has a track record of taking learnings from other industries and bringing them into your world?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think in terms of the digitization, I think it's probably quite a new approach if you apply it to, the customer side of things. Just because, in some pockets of the business, we'd probably have a more traditional approach. But I guess in the last 12 months, that's been quite a spur towards actually really taking some of these projects forward, because technology can be such an enabler, and also the data that you can collect from your operations and from your interactions with employees and customers can give you quite a rich set of information to refer to and kind of make decisions based on.
So before we go into the how Genus has adapted to the COVID situation and what the future might be for the way you operate, could you just give our listeners just a quick bit of background on Genus and what you do and how you operate? Would that be okay?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Genus, we're a UK PLC. We operate in over 80 countries, and our mission is really the advancement of animal breeding and genetic improvement by applying biotechnology to that. Currently, the way that we commercialize what we do is across the dairy, beef and pork production sectors under two brands. So two customer-facing brands, ABS on the dairy and beef side and PIC on the pork side. And what we're able to do is we're able to drive kind of greater production efficiency and quality for our customers. And, we look at things like the impact of genetics on feed efficiency, disease resistance, growth rates, protein and fat content, and fertility. And I think, what the company's kind of competitive edge is in terms of genetic improvement is we've got proprietary breeding lines of animals that are constantly being improved with the use of biotechnology. And we have excellent kind of technical service along with that. And as I mentioned, we're very global. There's a vast kind of sales and distribution network.
So 80 countries, as you say. I mean, that is hugely global. Wow.
Yeah.
And so is this about genetic selection? Would that be a way to describe the core business?
Yes, I think genetic improvement is probably the best way of looking at it. I think that's probably a good way of describing it.
And so you say 80 countries. How many countries are you responsible for in your portfolio?
So I'm responsible for everything that falls under EMEA, plus Russia and Asia. And we do operate either as a sort of owned business or through distributors in most countries that you can think of. So I don't know the precise number, but there's some very interesting jurisdictions that covers.
And so prior to this time last year, were you mostly on a plane flying to go and see your customers and colleagues? Would that be the way you would have operated?
Not entirely. So I definitely did a lot of traveling to meet up with my business colleagues who would have rarely been in the office because, they love being, out with customers, out having face-to-face discussions. But I would quite regularly have meetings with them in lots of different locations.
Sort of catching up with them, if you like, between customer visits.
Absolutely, catching up with them.
Really?
And I think also, I guess the way in which the business has operated is the legal function, in the sense that it exists at the moment, has been really, really well kind of established over quite a short period of time by our General Counsel, Dan Hartley. And we have made a lot of inroads into being more external customer facing and gaining that trust of the business to be in the room, for discussions. But that's a journey as well that a lot of in-house teams, have as a challenge.
So do you find yourself in terms of balance, is it legal advice you're nearly always giving, or do you find yourself drifting then into those commercial conversations with external parties as well?
Definitely a mixture. I think it has to be very commercially focused. Often people get a bit turned off when you start talking about legal concepts and draft, sort of very legal pieces. But no, it's got to be very commercial. And I think, I guess, part of the job in-house and the most exciting bit of it is, as you get to understand the company that you work for, understand your colleagues' motivations, understand the strategy, then you've got to layer that onto the kind of advice that you're going to give if you've got any chance of it really having an impact.
And so, in the last year then, how has not being able to see your clients and customers, how's that impacted the way you've operated?
So from a personal perspective, I have definitely missed a bit of the travel and seeing people face to face, those social interactions, the cups of coffee and, being able to really get to know people on a personal level, because that's how you build up a good relationship of trust, when you've got to then advise them on kind of various matters. So I've missed that. But at the same time, from a day-to-day, my job was a mixture of being based in the Genus Basingstoke office and then working from home. So I guess it is quite different to try and keep all those connections going when you're 100% working from home. So I think it's required a bit more effort, I would say, to just make it not all about work when you're speaking to your colleagues, but really understand, what else is going on, and also just to have a good amount of foresight as to what's coming down the track.
You'd been in the business a good kind of almost 5 years before the pandemic struck. So you had those relationships in place, I imagine, and you could rely on those when you suddenly went remote.
That's right, because I find it absolutely fascinating, in terms of how communication has had to adapt to completely online working. It's also made me personally think about how efficient or not I am, because, there is a lot of time spent on phone calls, but you need to make the interactions valuable as well. You need to be bringing the right people into conversations. And actually, the fact that everybody is able to communicate online means you don't have to worry so much about, whether people can travel to a meeting or, sort of who's available at a particular time necessarily. So it's definitely changed. It's changed my way of thinking and my approach to work, I think.
So has it made it easier in some ways to get the right person at the right time?
Yes, I think people are maybe a little bit more flexible, but I think the flip side of that is also being respectful of people's time. So really prioritizing what you need from them, and not sort of having endless hours of calls without some kind of objective in mind. I'm just thinking of, for example, back to the days when I'd be traveling to meet up with the business teams, and we might have like 2 or 3 days of various different topics being discussed, etc. You can't really do that in the same way across, online. You've got to make it a lot more focused to get, to keep people's attention and to try and, get things done.
But also one of the advantages I always found of traveling was if you traveled with someone, that was a real opportunity to get to know them again outside. You could far easily cover topics outside work, and clearly you wouldn't have that opportunity now either.
No, that's right. And you've got to find opportunities to have those chats, I think, and also to remember to take a few minutes at the beginning of or end of a call just to check in with people, see how they're doing. Some of the business teams that I work with are actually really good at that, taking the time to talk about well-being on the employee side and giving people the opportunity to explain how things are going from a personal and a work perspective, because the very unusual circumstances that we find ourselves in are global. And so it's a sort of shared but different experience depending on where you're living.
That's something that the business has had to encourage of people, or is that something that people have just naturally picked up and understood and thought about and acted on?
No, I think they've really had to work on that, actually. I guess something that's come across as being very important during this period of time has been health and safety. So that's really come to the fore. And I think part of that sort of health and safety more generally would be, the well-being, kind of mental health of employees, and also having some empathy for the situations that customers find themselves in as well. I mean, we work with farming organizations. We work with individuals that are sometimes in very remote parts of the world. So it's having that understanding. But I think the business has definitely adapted to being more open about talking about the challenges and also thanking employees. It's that simple act of kind of thanking people for all the effort that they're putting in and the juggling that they're doing, and also some recognition around team efforts. I've noticed that people are better at doing that because the business is doing incredibly well. The kind of financial metrics that Genus is measured on, that's really fantastic. And I think that's, people really appreciate it then when they get that thanks for being part of that team that's really embraced new ways of working and met the challenges kind of head on.
And then how about the commercial side of your business? Because obviously they're restricted in the way that you are from customer visits. How have they managed and dealt with those relationships with the remote farmer, as he uses as an example?
So they have rolled out some training very focused on kind of, remote selling, I guess is one way of describing it. So on the sales team side, but also I think it's presented some opportunities for people who are actually very adept at communicating by phone and sort of online, or happy to present on educational kind of webinars and think of different ways of marketing. It sort of opened up a new way of thinking about how to interact with customers, how to keep in touch with them, and how to listen to them in terms of what they need.
So quite would you say, a radical kind of ability to adapt to the situation? There's been commercial success, what I'm hearing, born out of, adapting to massive change in behaviour.
Yes, that's right. And I think the interesting bit will be what happens as things open up again.
There we go.
Will everything revert back to to what was done before? Or will we take some of these things and think, actually, that's a far better way of doing it? And, our employees enjoy that way of working, but our customers are actually responding really well to what we're offering as well. I think there's always going to be an importance and need for face-to-face meetings and human connections. I think that's absolutely vital. But I think it can be different, right? It can be combined with other ways of keeping in touch and other ways of doing business.
So would you say then that part of what's happened during the last year is that because every customer is the same distance away, suddenly, that those more niche, more remote customers have ended up on a more level playing field and given them more opportunities to partner with businesses like yours?
Yes, perhaps. I mean, it's also what appetite they have for being able to adapt to a different way of interacting, and use also, their level of comfort around use of technology, and also the time that they have to do that. I mean, often if you think about it, if salespeople are willing to travel face to face to meet the customers on, in their own space, then that's sometimes slightly less effort from the customer's perspective. So I think I don't think it's sort of one size fits all, really.
Right, okay. But it sounds like the toolkit, the salesperson's toolkit or the business toolkit has suddenly enlarged because you've got this online capability as well as this face-to-face capability.
Yes, and I think it's also, you can take a different view of what talent you have within the business, because people have different strengths, and those that maybe weren't so comfortable or so successful face to face might actually, through a different way of working, you just might be able to find different talents that already exist within the business but hadn't had a chance to be cultivated, if you look at it that way.
And then for you and the legal team, what's the legacy of the pandemic going to be for the way you as a legal team will operate?
I think we've been incredibly busy, and I can't really work out whether it's just the fact that we're all in a different, we're in our home environments and it's more difficult to switch off, or genuinely, I mean, the business is very busy, but it feels like the work has definitely dramatically picked up compared to sort of pre-pandemic. I mean, what we've been looking at as a legal team is, the benefit of different ways of working, or efficiencies in terms of what legal operations might bring to the team. We hadn't really considered that before, but just really understanding, and actually back to the data, understanding really what everybody is doing and whether that work is sort of shared out in the right way, giving people the right kind of opportunities. Because I think this different way of working, when you don't all have to kind of be in the office, that presents opportunities across the team and cross-border. A lot of our team are based in the US. And I think we've built better connections during this period of time than we maybe had previously, because we're all going through the same kind of thing with the same challenges.
Could it have worked the other way, though, because you're not physically together or less together, that the ability to share that work out efficiently has become harder?
It does rely on people keeping in touch and being able to have the time to explain sort of what's on their plate and where there might be opportunities to collaborate. That's got to be more conscious, I think.
Almost like sort of creating a kind of consciousness, or a conscious connectedness.
Yes, that's right. I think that's a good way of describing it. The other big change for the legal team, which is fantastic, is Genus has a great focus on sustainability and what the business can do in terms of, reducing the impact of agriculture on the environment.
Right.
And we've got a new head of sustainability, and he's actually part of the legal team, which is brilliant. So that's kind of, it's great to have a new, I guess, something new for everybody to learn about and understand how the legal team might support those efforts of the business on that side.
And how have your external counsel been? Have they been with you during all these changes over the last year?
That's a very good question.
Go on, it's an opportunity for you to slag off your external counsel.
I think it's been very individual as to the approach. Definitely some particular individuals on the external counsel side have been excellent at keeping in touch and just catching up, seeing how things are going. Because I think that one of the most important pieces from an in-house external counsel relationship is, a genuine understanding in the business strategy of your client, and also kind of the approach of the legal team and how much support they need. So sort of that curiosity combined with the sort of appropriate support. And we definitely get that from the corporate law firm that we work with. They definitely provide a lot in terms of that, keeping in touch and kind of and value add. But I don't think that's been consistent across the board. I think it's probably been pretty tricky for law firms to adapt to how to keep in touch in a meaningful way with their in-house clients that they don't work with on a very regular basis.
Right.
Yeah, because we really only go out to external counsel for significant M&A transactions or very specialist topics.
So could it be just about them then, or could it be about, is there a learning there maybe that closer partnership with your external counsel will drive value and dividends further on down the line in the relationship?
I think it definitely could. And I also think that law firms, they're exploring a lot in terms of legal technology. They've already got vast experience in terms of that legal operations side of things. So I actually think there's an awful lot of value that an in-house team can learn from their law firm partners, and sort of different ways of collaborating as well. I also think that it's definitely incumbent on in-house lawyers, and I always try and remember this, to really take the time when you're working with external counsel to explain, the background and the personalities involved in the deals that you're trying to do. Because at the end of the day, it's all about people and those connections. And, you can only expect external counsel to do a really good job if they've got, the whole picture.
Absolutely. I mean, they need to understand your context, otherwise they can't give the advice you need in that context.
Absolutely.
So what other things has Genus put in place for the employees to give them support during the pandemic, Amy?
Well, what the employees at Genus, the female employees at Genus, have done sort of for themselves in a way is we've started Genus's first employee resource group, which is called AWAKE, and that stands for Advancing Women's Advocacy, Knowledge and Engagement. We've got a leadership team, we've got committees, we've got a real focus on, it's not just about gender diversity, but trying to really create a very inclusive culture and a platform to support and develop people through the organisation. And actually that's been really crucial during the pandemic, because it's been a fantastic way of connecting with people all around the globe through other women, but also male allies of Awake. And actually, I think that's been really beneficial from a sort of support network perspective. And I think other initiatives like that are really what can help people to kind of keep going through challenging times. So I'd be delighted that that's happened over the last 12 months.
But again, there's potential for that post-pandemic. What sort of things, what kind of direction do you think Awake would go after the pandemic?
Well, we were quite nervous about launching virtually. We really didn't know how that would go. And so it was great to see that that was a success, and that we didn't all have to kind of meet up face to face to really get some really fun and fruitful connections. So I think post-pandemic, there will be kind of getting together in person, but also I think there'll be opportunities to make it truly global and find interesting speakers and create workshops that are relevant to the other challenges that will lie ahead. I mean, we're very focused on the pandemic, but who knows what's going to happen in the next few years. Right. So, we want to be as sort of prepared and kind of robust for the future.
And also take the positive things that have happened during the pandemic and move those forward, and not lose all those different forms of connection that we've had.
That's right. I think it'll be interesting, won't it, to see how much is stored in the collective memory of this time, and how much can be used for really, to create a more positive future, really for companies, for employees. I definitely think, again, from a personal perspective, for some reason during this period of time, you do really start to think about the values of the company that you work for, and how you want to try and influence those and feel that you're empowered to influence them.
Amy, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thanks ever so much for your time.
Thank you very much indeed.
So that was Oliver Hansard talking to Amy Gibson, and Oliver joins me now. Oliver, really lovely conversation. And actually, the thing that really struck me there was how interesting the law can be.
Yeah, she's had such a fascinating journey from Lovells through into such a variety of different businesses. So EMI, the music business, then into data with Dunnhumby and Tesco, and then on to Genus, and then the genetics business. And what really struck me was, firstly, the variety of different roles she's had and types of businesses she's been in, but how also she's been able to bring different skills and different experiences and use them as she's moved her career forward.
And what I thought was interesting in that regard was she was talking about something that's been a bit of a buzzword in law this year and indeed last year as well, which is contract optimization and thinking about the process and thinking about how you use data differently. And it was quite interesting, her coming from a data business, how now in her new role and probably forced in a way by the pandemic, where people have had to think about their processes slightly differently, think about how they work slightly differently, that's something that she's now kind of bringing in and thinking about.
And so must every other business. They must be thinking, okay, so we've had a different way of working during the pandemic. We can work differently in lots of other ways as well, so we can be far more effective, not only in how we communicate, but how we manage ourselves and how we deliver our clients and our business's needs. So it's almost, slap us in the face that there's more, maybe everyone's up for more change. Who knows?
Yeah. And again, another interesting reflection that I had was Ally McBeal. I mean, Ally McBeal seems to be the root cause for many lawyers.
An inspiration to many a lawyer. It's obvious, isn't it?
Had I not watched Ally McBeal, would I have been a lawyer? I don't know, but maybe there's something to be explored, but perhaps more deep than Ally McBeal ever imagined she would be.
And who knows, maybe there's something on TV now that's inspiring the next generation of lawyers.
Yeah, who knows? My children watch Waffle the dog, so talking dogs, maybe that's the future. So that conversation took a bit of an unexpected turn, but Ollie, it was really lovely hearing from Amy. And thank you for listening, and we hope you join us for the next episode of Lawyers Coach.
Lawyers Coach is brought to you by Client Talk and Hansard Coaching. If you're enjoying this series, please rate us on your podcast provider so that others can find us. If you're a lawyer and would like to take part in Lawyers Coach, please visit our website lawyercoach.co.uk for further details. And you can also join the conversation on our LinkedIn group Lawyers Coach. If there are any topics you'd like to hear us discuss, then just get in touch.